I certified a vital interlocking I knew could misroute a train, and when this ends you'll slide your yen 50129 safety case across the table and ask me to sign it with the same pen that mothballed your line. If you're reading this, and you've ever held a key switch while an axle counter ticked like a heartbeat, you're part of the block now. Kill the radio. Listen for relays. This is the part where a signal learns how to lie. They didn't fire me. They reassigned me to stakeholder engagement, which is the platform where engineers go to wave and stop touching wires. My badge still opened the depot gate. It stopped opening the relay room. The tool crib grinned and beeped no. I got a polo shirt and a smile that said, "Nicely, please be a pamphlet." My name is Aaliyah Brand, independent safety assessor, contracted through Velt Assurance, parachuted into projects when the acronyms start breeding. Senelec 50126, 50128, 50129 by heart. SL allocation like a catechism. I can read a ladder logic rung like gossip. I own a kit no one reimburses. 10x loop for crimps. A climb that knows when a terminal is tired. A fluke 87V, a set of tamper seals with numbers only I track. A notebook that eats pencils, and a voice recorder I use when memories try to slip their rails. Dispossession started with a phone call. "Sign off Friday," said the program director, a man who likes milestones more than breaks. Greenfield interlocking, 22 points. ETCS level 2 overlay, axle counters throughout, RBC tested, RBC/IXL handshake stable. We need your concurrence for the ISA letter. "Show me the hazard log," I said. "Later," he said. "We're doing a demonstration for the minister." It would be embarrassing if... Embarrassment is a near miss wearing better shoes, I said. The hazard log arrived like a confession that had been proofread. SIL, 4 for the interlocking. SIL, 2 for point machine monitoring. SIL, 2 for the public address because fashion. A closed hazard H, 117. Simultaneous route setting under RBC fallback. Operator confusion. Mitigated by human factors training EHF 12. Another, H203. Axle counter reset during degraded mode, risk of phantom clear, mitigated by procedural lockout 2-person rule. I highlighted H203 until the page looked like it believed me. During SAT, the system acceptance test, I watched them prove what they wanted to see. ODS, Operational Data Server, logged RBC dialogues neat as hymns. The interlocking GUI showed routes painting in tasteful blues. When we cut the radio and went to fallback, the dispatcher toggled to a screen that might as well have said "Trust me" in Helvetica. I asked to see the reset procedure when an axle section fails to clear after a storm. 2-person rule, the vendor's test lead said. Supervisor key and sign off. No danger. "Show me danger," I said. He didn't laugh. Good. He led me to a panel you only touch when the world is kind. The axle counter reset box, sealed with a paper strip that tears like dignity. "There," he said. "Both keys, both tags, both signatures, both eyes." "Both eyes still belong to one head," I said. He looked at me the way project people look at ISA people, like we name ghosts to keep ourselves busy. We do. The ghosts are punctual. I didn't sign on Friday. I went to Site C, a 4-track throat-feeding a station the press calls a miracle of modern rail. Miracles make engineers suspicious. Points 12A I had a clamp lock that had learned to squeal like a secret. I walked the ballast in boots that remember rain. I squatted by a cabinet with a breathing fan and a sticker that said "Don't." I opened it because the sticker was for tourists. Inside, relays sitting like old gods and a new CBI, computer-based interlocking, humming like a polite liar. The vendor had used a brand of terminal block I don't trust because its plastic ages faster than promises. Below the terminal strips, a paper tag with scribble. Temp bypass, awaiting design change, Route 14 westbound overlapping. Approved by illegible. Bypass plus awaiting plus approved is a route to a funeral. I photographed it and texted the photo to the program director and the vendor lead and my own lawyer because sometimes you forward yourself to keep the future straight. "Keys," the old maintainer said behind me, and my hands offered the habit before my head caught up. He took the cabinet key back like a teacher. "Turnover sheet," he added, almost smiling. "Later," I said. "Now I need your ears." I asked him for war stories. He told me about trainers who retire but don't leave the building. He told me about an axle counter section that puddles after every first rain in spring and clears after the sun apologizes. He told me about a reset that wasn't but got written as one because nobody wanted to be in the room with a stuck signal and a late train. Who signed the last reset? I asked. Dispatch, he said. 2-person rule. Her and her own shadow. He chewed that and spit it into the ballast. We both looked at the temporary bypass wire like it had applied for citizenship. 2 days later they reassigned me. Stakeholder engagement, the email said. Communications plan to support public trust. The access list trimmed my name like nails. No interlocking, no RBC, no config management, no ODS. The hazard log circulated without me the way a rumor upgrades itself to policy. Dispossession is when the system keeps your signature template handy and loses your face. If you're reading this, and you've ever watched a track circuit refuse to drop under a diesel because someone's bond had gotten lazy, you know why I stopped sleeping. Act 2 started with numbers that misbehaved politely. In fallback, the interlocking claims each axle section is empty before permitting a route. To be empty, the section must count out what it counted in. We simulated a wrong side failure by delaying a head on the wheel detector with a magnet and a prayer. The count went weird, then normalized, like a man who hiccups and apologizes. I asked for raw count logs. The vendor gave me perfect CSVs that looked like design white papers. Rising edges were spaced like a metronome. That isn't how trains breathe. I went hunting for imperfection. We have one immunity left when everything gets shiny. Physics. I brought a little loop antenna and a data logger I love more than some family. I taped the loop near a wheel detector and let a freight roll across it while vendor logs smiled elsewhere. My loop sang a pattern that didn't match their CSV. In the vendor's file, the gap was 125 milliseconds. In mine, 190 milliseconds with jitter. Not huge. Enough. When patterns don't match, either you're wrong or the story is. The RBC
Your logger
handshake
is
with the
noisy,
interlocking is supposed to be a
the test lead said.
gentleman. My logger is
RBC
honest,
asks,
I said.
Interlocking answers.
Then your magnet changed
They
the
both
field,
take a bow, he said.
In fallback,
My magnet was
the
30
RBC
meters
is a
away.
ghost at the door,
I
said.
The interlocking
He folded his
should ignore
arms
it.
into a bridge.
I asked the ODS
He
to
wouldn't
show me
cross.
10 minutes at the
Independent
cutover when
review,
they changed a route,
he said in a
because
tone
the
that
minister
meant
wanted
go be
a photo
alone.
op under a green.
I went more alone.
The
ODS was unavailable due to archiving. I've heard quieter lies, so I set a trap that didn't look like one. I asked to run a fatigue test on the axle counters near points 12 AIB to validate EMI immunity during tamping operations, which is how you get a machine with a big coil on track without the vendor writing a poem. We rolled the tamper in. I ran my loop. I watched the axle counter head noise floor climb like a teenager discovering volume. The interlocking, to its credit, held red. The dispatcher asked for a reset because the morning peak won't move itself. I stood next to the reset box like a priest. 2-person rule, I said. Supervisor is on a call, the dispatcher said. I guess we're waiting for God, I said. The program director arrived in a high vis like a costume. Brand, he said. We need to be seen to be decisive. Decisiveness isn't a mitigation, I said. Watch me decide, he said, and reached for one key while the dispatcher reached for the other. I put my hand over the box. No, I said. A quiet fell. Not the good kind. The kind that happens on the line right before someone says your full name. Remove her, the program director said. They didn't arrest me. You don't arrest a pamphlet. They escorted me to the fence and took my badge like a souvenir. Retaliation arrived like courtesy. A vendor email invited me to celebrate our shared success at a hotel with a chandelier. I RSVP'd with a list of hazard IDs and a note. Bring H. 203 reopened. Silence. Then a calendar cancel. Good. The chandelier will miss me. I still had friends. Radu in maintenance sent me a text that said, Cab 3 log prints look wrong. I met him where we used to smoke when we were young and thought rail would save us. He handed me a stack of thermal paper like damp apologies. On the event recorder, a reset had been logged at 5 o'clock with 2 initials that looked suspiciously alike, DA and not identical. Similar enough to be a tired clerk's joke or a quiet forgery. Did 12A throw weird after? I asked. It hesitated, he said. Clamp lock took an extra 3 seconds. Nobody logged it. They were busy being brave. We pulled CCTV from a camera that only cares about graffiti. It caught a reflection of two people at the reset box, the dispatcher and the program director. Both turned their bodies in the way you do when you're pretending to be someone else for a camera you forgot about until you didn't. First victory tasted like old coffee in printer heat. I took the thermal logs and the CCTV reflection and my loop data and dropped them at the National Safety Agency with a letter that said, politely, 50129 Clause 5.2.2 on independent safety justification requires independent data. Then I called the minister's aide, the one who likes trains like toys and budgets like swords, and said, if you cut the ribbon with a locked hazard, your ribbon will cut you back. He called his boss. His boss called my former boss. My former boss called me names in a voice that used to say, good work. The agency opened a targeted inquiry. Not a big one. Big ones happen after funerals. This one asked for ODS archives for the hour in question. The vendor produced a dump that was both too much and not enough. Every record ended in round seconds. Real systems have crumbs and opinions. The agency asked me to sit in while they asked polite questions with teeth. The vendor said clock skew and sync service and Docker restart and every other modern way to lie with a smile. I asked for the NTP configuration file. They said proprietary. The agency said, hand it over, because sometimes the hat fits. The file had a server listed that was inside the vendor's network, not the authorities. Time is a weapon. They held it at home where their dinner is. We suspended fallback use at Site C pending review, which is the word you use when you can't say we're scared in a press release. The trains ran on RBC with redundancy and a prayer. The minister got a ribbon anyway. I watched on my phone and chewed an old pencil until it told me to stop. Act 3, the false victory, rolled in like pride. The vendor refreshed their audit logs, the program director made a speech about transparent partnership, and the agency wrote a letter that included the word satisfactory 3 times and monitor once. They closed H203 again with a new mitigation. Periodic drill, reset with observers. It looked good in a table. Tables feel like progress when they're just tables. Then an inbound set slowed into Site C with the driver reporting strange feel over points 12 AIB. The interlocking showed normal. The clamp lock had a scar where a hand had loved it wrong. Radu called me from under the cabinet to say, you're going to be unhappy. He sent a photo of a temporary bypass loop on a terminal labeled with the point's normal detection. A little jumper wire, polite, efficient, evil. You can hide a phantom's clear that way. I set into a room no one wanted to admit existed. We traced the jumper back to a maintenance work order that didn't mention it. The initials on the work order were the test lead's assistants, a kid who thought safety culture was a poster. He said he had just done what the sheet in the cabinet said. The sheet in the cabinet said temp bypass, awaiting design change, approved by illegible. The illegible looked more like a personality than a name. We recognized the loop of AD and an A. The program director liked his initials. I needed a sting. I needed the interlocking to tell the truth in a room full of microphones that think they can make physics applaud. So I wrote a boring piece of paper called Field Verification of Clamp Lock Indication Paths, Site C procedure. It required a 3-person team, me as a stakeholder, a maintainer, and a vendor representative. We would inject a simulated open circuit on the normal detection, verify the interlocking showed not locked, then remove the injection and watch the relay sing. On the form, at the bottom, I added a tiny QR code that logged device and time to a page I controlled. Scan for latest revision, it said, which is the only way to make a QR obey. We scheduled the test. The program director didn't show. He sent the test lead and a PR person with teeth. Radu did the hands. We cut the detection with an injection tool. Interlocking showed not locked. We removed the tool. Interlocking went locked. Then I asked to remove the clamp lock backdrive link and see the indication lie. An old trick to prove the loop is honest. Not necessary, the test lead said. Watch me need it, I said. We removed the link. The points were physically free. The indication should go not locked. It stayed locked. The PR person smiled like a person who believes in facts uncritically. The test lead turned a color that suggests a man has miscounted his exits. Radu reached into the cabinet and pulled the polite, evil jumper like a magician. He held it up. The PR person stopped smiling. The QR code logs pinged my page from the test lead's phone and from a device named CM Vendor 01. Now our paper had fingerprints. The agency, having been invited in the only way they can be, asked for everyone's phones. They pulled NTP again. They pulled ODS again. They pulled the event recorder again. They found the place where time had breathed wrong, the seconds too round, the resets too pretty, the dual initials on a thermal print that only looks silly until the night wants to be long. Act 4 happened in a room with carpet and a projector that eats men for lunch. The agency sat at one end. The vendor and program director sat at the other. Radu and I sat in the cheap seats because the truth gets assigned by payroll. I brought the jumper wire in a little evidence bag because dignity likes outfits. I brought my loop graphs and the tamper-sealed photo and the QR hit list and the NTP server address that lived in a building with espresso bar. Explain, the agency said. The program director tried necessary expedients during bedding in, and then miscommunication, and then legacy culture, and then pride. Pride is true and unhelpful. The vendor tried rogue employee. I said rogue policy. Radu said nothing and placed the jumper wire on the table like a small animal we'd save from a trap. The agency suspended fallback operations across the project and ordered a third-party time source for ODS with monitoring the vendor couldn't touch. They reopened H203 with teeth this time and told the minister to love delays like life jackets. They also did something rarer. They froze a ribbon already cut. The press took pictures of a station learning humility. My reassignment ended in a letter with 2 sentences that surprised me by being kind. Your engagement was consistent with the duties of an ISA under Yen 50129, it said. Return to your prior scope. I got my badge back. The relay room let me in with a sigh that felt like diesel in winter. I walked back to the cabinet at points 12 AIB. The clamp lock gleamed because shame likes to polish. I wiped my hand on my jeans and painted a tiny dot of nail polish, pink, stolen from a friend, on the head of a screw that holds the indication wire. Pink on steel doesn't matter to physics. It matters to liars. You can photograph pink easy. Men don't carry pink in their pockets unless they mean to. Keys. A new trainee said softly, and I put the cabinet key in her hand like I was giving her a knife and a book. Turn over sheet, I said, and watched her print her name in block letters like she wanted the letters to hold. Restoration did not come as applause. It came as an updated hazard log with H203 closed by removal of local reset authority, and a cross-check with a remote out-of-band confirmation heartbeat the dispatcher can't bless alone. It came as NTP pointing at the sky where no vendor eats lunch. It came as a public note about delays that read like a grown-up wrote it. It came as a PR person who sent me a cookie and didn't sign their name. I went home on a late train that stopped at Site C and paused over 12 AIB like a person checking their pockets for a wallet. The signal read us honestly. The axle counter ticked like a watch that has decided not to lie today. I took out my recorder and said, to myself, to anyone listening later, power equals information. Information equals timetables that don't kill people. I certified a vital interlocking I knew could misroute a train. Now I certify the interlockings that refuse to lie even when a ribbon wants them to. And when this ends, you'll slide your Yen 50129 safety case across the table and ask me to sign it with the same pen that mothballed your line and taught your signal to tell the truth.